The merchant's wagon creaked to a halt in front of Finn Oakley's farmhouse, and before he could even set down his hammer, 3 burly men were already hauling a young orc woman down from the back, like she was livestock. Finn had been repairing his fence when the wagon rolled up the dirt path that cut through his wheat fields, the afternoon sun beating down on his shoulders as he worked. He was not expecting visitors, and he certainly was not expecting this. The orc woman stumbled as her feet hit the ground, her wrists bound with rough rope that had rubbed the green skin raw. She was younger than he had first thought, maybe 19 or 20 summers, with dark hair pulled back in a messy braid and eyes that flashed with barely contained fury. "Finn Oakley," the lead merchant called out, a portly man with graying whiskers and expensive boots caked in road dust. "We heard you had a broken wagon wheel. We have got a replacement, good oak, reinforced with iron bands." Finn approached slowly, his eyes never leaving the orc woman. She was watching him too, her jaw set, and those small tusks visible as her lips pulled back slightly. She wore tattered clothing that might have once been traveling gear, now stained and torn. There were bruises on her arms where hands had gripped too tightly. "I do need a wheel," Finn admitted carefully. "But what does that have to do with her?" The merchant grinned, revealing yellowed teeth. "That is the trade, friend. 1 good wagon wheel for 1 orc slave. She is strong, healthy, can work your fields. You are alone out here, are you not?" "Could use the help, I would wager." Something cold settled in Finn's stomach. He had been alone since his father died 2 years back, working this farm by himself through every season. A wagon wheel would cost him dearly in the nearest town, money he did not really have to spare. But this was wrong in ways that made his skin crawl. "I do not keep slaves," Finn said quietly. "Oh, she is not a slave exactly," another merchant chimed in, younger than the first with a cruel set to his mouth. "More like property. Orcs are not people's friend, everyone knows that. We captured her raiding near the border settlements. Lucky we did not just kill her outright." The orc woman spat at the younger merchant's feet, earning herself a rough shake from the man holding her arm. "I was not raiding, you lying filth," she snarled. "I was gathering herbs in the forest." "Quiet, monster," the man gripping her arm snapped, raising his hand. "Do not," Finn heard himself say, his voice harder than he intended. The merchant paused, looking at him with raised eyebrows. Finn took a breath, forcing his tone to stay level. "If you are offering a trade, then let us talk terms, but I will not have anyone struck on my property." The lead merchant studied him for a long moment, then shrugged. "Fair enough. So what do you say? 1 wheel barely used, worth at least 30 silver pieces in any market. For her." He jerked his thumb at the orc woman. "Seems like a good deal to me." Finn looked at the orc woman again. She was staring at him now with an expression he could not quite read. Not hope exactly, that would be too much to expect, but maybe a flicker of curiosity, wondering what he would do. He thought about sending them away, refusing the deal entirely. But then what? They would take her somewhere else, sell her to someone who would not hesitate to use her badly. At least here she would be safe. "The wheel," Finn said slowly. "Let me see it first." They showed him the wheel, and he had to admit it was good quality, exactly what he needed to replace the one that had split beyond repair last month. He ran his hands over the wood, checking for cracks or weak points, finding none. It was worth the price they claimed, maybe more. "All right," he said finally, hating himself a little, "but I want the ropes removed, now." The merchants exchanged glances. Not sure that his wise friend, she is a fighter, this one. "Then it is not a deal." Finn crossed his arms. "I will not have someone bound on my farm." "Remove the ropes or take your wheel and go." Grumbling, they complied, one of them sawing through the rope with a knife while the others stood ready in case she tried to run or attack. The orc woman rubbed her wrists as soon as she was free, her eyes still fixed on Finn with that unreadable expression. She did not run. She did not attack. She just stood there, waiting. The merchants unloaded the wheel, leaning it against Finn's barn with satisfied grins. "Pleasure doing business," the lead merchant said, already climbing back onto his wagon. "Word of advice, keep her locked up at night. Orcs are cunning and she will slit your throat if you give her half a chance." Then they were gone, the wagon rattling back down the path toward the main road, leaving Finn alone with the orc woman in his yard. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the whisper of wind through the wheat and the distant call of a crow. "So," she said finally, her voice rough. "Are you going to lock me up?" "No," Finn said. "You are free to go if you want." She blinked, clearly not expecting that. "Free? I did not buy you to keep you prisoner." Finn gestured toward the road. "That path leads to the main trading route. Head east for 2 days and you will reach the border forests. I assume that is orc territory." "It is," she said slowly. "You are just letting me go, after paying 30 silver worth of wagon wheel for me." "I needed the wheel anyway," Finn said, which was true enough. "And I do not believe in owning people, any people." She studied him for a long moment, her dark eyes searching his face for deception or tricks. Finn stood still under her scrutiny, letting her look. He was tall for a human, broad-shouldered from years of farm work, with brown hair that always seemed to be falling into his eyes and a face his mother had once called honest. He hoped it looked honest now. "You are strange for a human," the orc woman said at last. "I have been told that before." Finn picked up his hammer from where he had set it down. "There is a well over there if you are thirsty. I can give you some food for the journey if you want to wait while I put something together." "Why are you being kind to me?" Finn paused, considering the question. "Because those men were not. Because you look like you have had a rough few days. Because it is the right thing to do," he shrugged. "Pick whichever reason you like best." For the first time, something that might have been a smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. "All 3, I think." She walked over to the well, moving with a fighter's grace despite obvious exhaustion. She drew up a bucket of water and drank deeply, then splashed some on her face and the raw patches on her wrists. "My name is Grisha." "Finn," he hesitated. "Grisha, if you want to rest before you travel, there is a barn. It is clean and I have spare blankets. You look like you could use some sleep." "I could," she admitted, "but I do not want to put you in danger. If anyone finds out you helped an orc, even just by letting me rest here, there could be trouble. Let me worry about that." She looked at him again with that searching expression, then nodded slowly. "Just for tonight, then. I will leave at first light." Finn showed her to the barn, which was indeed clean and well-maintained. He kept his 2 plow horses here, along with a milk cow and some chickens that roosted in the rafters. He pulled down a pile of blankets from a storage chest and made up a decent bed in one of the empty stalls, fresh hay covered with wool. "It is not much," he said. "It is better than the cage they kept me in," Grisha replied quietly. "Thank you." Finn left her there and went back to the house to prepare some food. He put together a basket with bread, cheese, dried meat, and apples, enough to last her several days on the road. He also included a water skin and a small knife, the kind used for eating rather than fighting but useful all the same. As he worked, he found himself thinking about her eyes, the way they held such fierce intelligence even through the exhaustion. He brought the basket out to the barn as the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Grisha was sitting on the hay, running her fingers through her hair to work out the tangles from her braid. She looked up as he entered. "I thought you might be hungry now," Finn said, setting the basket down. "And there is supplies for your journey." Grisha looked into the basket, her eyes widening slightly. This is too much. It is what I can spare. Please take it. She pulled out the bread and cheese, eating with the careful control of someone who had gone hungry before and knew better than to make herself sick by eating too fast now. Finn sat down on a hay bale across from her, not too close, giving her space. "Can I ask what happened?" he said after a while. "You do not have to tell me if you do not want to." Grisha swallowed her mouthful of bread. "I told the truth before. I was gathering herbs in the forest near the border. I am training to be a healer among my clan, and I need certain plants that only grow in the lowlands." She took another bite, chewing thoughtfully. "Those merchants ambushed me. There were 6 of them, all armed. I fought, but they had nets and knew how to handle someone my size. Your clan will be worried about you." "Yes." Pain flickered across her face. "My mother especially. She will think I am dead. Then you should get back to her as soon as you can." "I will." Grisha looked at him. "Why did you really agree to that trade, Finn? You could have just refused it outright." "I thought about that," Finn admitted. "But then they would have taken you somewhere else, sold you to someone who might have hurt you. At least this way I could make sure you were safe. You do not even know me." "Does that matter?" Grisha was quiet for a moment. "To most humans it does. We are monsters to your people. Things to be killed or enslaved. You do not seem like a monster to me. You seem like someone who was in the wrong place at the wrong time. My clan would say I am foolish for trusting a human, even one who seems kind." "Are you trusting me, I mean?" Grisha met his eyes. "I think I am. Also foolish, probably. But you have had every chance to hurt me and have not. You gave me food and shelter and my freedom. Either you are the kindest human I have ever met, or you are playing a very long game." "The first one," Finn said. "Definitely the first one. I am not clever enough for long games." That got a real smile from her, brief but genuine. "I believe you." They talked a while longer as the darkness settled in around them. Finn found himself telling her about the farm, about his father who had died of fever, about the loneliness of working the land by himself. Grisha told him about her clan in the border forests, about her mother who was a respected healer and her younger brother who dreamed of being a warrior. She made orc life sound not so different from human life, really. People living and working and hoping for good things. When he finally left her to sleep, Finn walked back to his house feeling strange in a way he could not quite name. He lay in his own bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about green skin and dark eyes and a fierce pride that would not break even in chains. He woke before dawn, as he always did, and went about his morning chores. He fed the chickens, milked the cow, and carried water from the well. The barn door was still closed when he finished, and he wondered if Grisha had already left, slipping away in the darkness. The thought made his chest feel oddly tight. But when he opened the barn door, she was there, awake and repacking the basket he had given her. She looked up as he entered, and there was something different in her expression now, something softer. "I was going to leave without saying goodbye," she said. "It seemed easier, but you did not." "No," she stood, slinging the basket over her shoulder. "I wanted to thank you properly. What you did, helping me like this, it is not something I will forget. You do not need to thank me." "Yes, I do." She stepped closer, and Finn caught the scent of hay and herbs. "If you ever need help, Finn Oakley, come to the border forests and ask for Grisha of the Stone Bear clan. I will repay this debt." "There is no debt," Finn said quietly, "but I am glad to have met you, Grisha. I hope you make it home safely." "I will." She hesitated, then did something that surprised him. She reached out and took his hand, squeezing it once. Her skin was warm, her grip strong. "Goodbye, Finn. Goodbye." He watched her walk away down the path, her figure growing smaller and smaller until she disappeared into the morning mist. Then he went back to work, trying not to think about how empty the farm felt now. The days passed. Finn repaired his wagon with the new wheel, brought in the last of the harvest, and prepared for winter. He told himself he had done the right thing, that Grisha was probably safely back with her clan by now. But at night, when the work was done and the house was quiet, he found his thoughts drifting back to her. The way she had looked at him with those fierce eyes, the sound of her laugh when he had said something that amused her, the warmth of her hand in his. On the second morning after she had left, Finn woke to the sound of someone chopping wood. He sat up in bed, confused. He had not planned to chop wood today, and there should not be anyone else on his property. He dressed quickly and went outside, and what he saw made him stop in his tracks. Grisha was in his yard, axe in hand, systematically working through his woodpile. She had already split a considerable amount, the pieces stacked neatly to the side. She looked up as he approached, and there was something almost defiant in her expression. "What are you doing here?" Finn asked, too surprised to manage anything more eloquent. "Chopping wood," Grisha said, as if this should be obvious. "You are going to need a lot for winter, and this pile was in bad shape." "I know that, but I meant, why are you here? You were supposed to go home." Grisha set down the axe, wiping sweat from her forehead. She was breathing hard from the work, but she looked better than she had 2 days ago, rested and fed and strong. "I did go home. I made it back to clan territory by yesterday afternoon." "Then why did you come back?" "Because I could not stop thinking about what you did." She picked up the axe again, turning it over in her hands. "Those merchants sold me for a wagon wheel, like I was worth less than a piece of wood. But you treated me like I was worth something. You gave me food and shelter and freedom, and you asked for nothing in return." "That is just being decent," Finn said. "No," Grisha shook her head firmly. "It is more than that. I have met humans before, Finn. Most of them would have done what those merchants wanted. Kept me chained, worked me until I broke, or worse. You did not, and I realized something on my way home." "What?" "That I do not want to walk away from the first human who ever showed me kindness, that maybe there is something here worth staying for." She met his eyes. "So I came back." "If you will have me." Finn felt like the ground had shifted under his feet. "Grisha, you do not owe me anything. Your family must be worried sick." "I told my mother where I was going. She was not happy about it, but she understands." Grisha set the axe down and walked closer to him. "This is not about debt, Finn. This is about choice. I choose to be here. I choose to help you. And maybe, if you will let me, I choose to know you better. The other humans around here, if they find out you are staying, there will be talk. There could be trouble." "I know." "Are you willing to risk it?" Finn looked at her, really looked at her. At the hope carefully hidden behind that fierce expression. At the courage it must have taken to walk away from everything familiar and come back to a place where she was not welcome, to a man she barely knew. He thought about the empty house and the quiet nights and the loneliness that had been his constant companion for 2 years. "Yes," he said. "Yes, I am willing to risk it." The smile that broke across Grisha's face was like sunrise. "Good. Then I am going to finish chopping this wood, and you are going to tell me what else needs doing around here." So began the strangest and most wonderful arrangement Finn had ever known. Grisha moved into the barn, insisting she did not want to impose on his house, though he had offered. She worked alongside him every day, and he quickly learned that she had not exaggerated her strength. She could carry loads that would have staggered him, work hours without tiring, and handle tools with practiced ease. But more than that, she was clever. She knew things about the land that he had never learned, could read the weather in the shape of the clouds, and identify every plant that grew in his fields. She showed him which weeds could be used for medicine, and which ones the horses would eat if they were feeling poorly. She told him stories while they worked, tales of her clan and the old orc traditions, and Finn found himself fascinated by every word. In return, he taught her things too. How to repair wagon wheels and mend fences. How to judge when the wheat was ready for harvest, and how to preserve food for winter. He lent her books from his small collection, and was surprised to learn she could read human script, though haltingly. They would sit by the fire in the evenings, Grisha struggling through passages while Finn helped with the difficult words. The first week passed in a blur of work and conversation. Finn found himself looking forward to each morning, to the sight of Grisha already up and moving around the yard. She seemed happy here, or at least content, though sometimes he caught her staring off toward the forest with a distant look in her eyes. "You miss them?" he asked one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. "Your clan." "Every day," Grisha admitted, "but I visit them sometimes. I went 2 days ago while you were in the fields. My mother wanted to check on me, make sure I was being treated well." "What did you tell her?" "The truth. That you are kind and fair and work harder than anyone I have ever met." She glanced at him. "She still thinks I am crazy for staying with a human, but she trusts my judgment. I hope I can live up to that trust." "You already do." The second week brought the first real test. Finn had to go into the nearby village to trade some of his grain for other supplies, and he was worried about leaving Grisha alone. Not because he did not trust her, but because he did not trust the neighbors. His farm was isolated enough that no one had come by yet, but if someone saw her while he was gone, there could be problems. "I will stay in the barn," Grisha said when he voiced his concerns. "If anyone comes, I will hide. I am good at that." "I do not like the idea of you having to hide on what should be your home too." "It is the smart thing to do, Finn. We both know it." So he went to the village, his wagon creaking along the rutted road, and tried not to worry. The trading went smoothly enough, though he heard some disturbing talk in the market. There had been raids on farms to the south, people were saying. Orcs coming down from the mountains, stealing livestock and burning fields. The local lord was talking about organizing hunting parties to push them back. Finn kept his mouth shut and his head down, but his stomach churned. He knew Grisha's people were not raiders. They kept to themselves in the forests, living their own lives. But humans looking for an excuse to hurt orcs would not care about the truth. He hurried home as fast as the loaded wagon would allow, and felt a rush of relief when he saw the farm still standing, everything as it should be. Grisha emerged from the barn as he pulled up, and he saw the tension leave her shoulders when she saw him. "Any trouble?" she asked. "No, but there is talk in the village. Raids to the south, people blaming orcs." Grisha's expression darkened. "The Stone Bear clan is not raiding. We have a peace agreement with the human settlements in our territory." "I believe you, but not everyone will." "Then we will have to be careful." They unloaded the wagon together, and Finn found himself acutely aware of how close she was, the brush of her arm against his as they worked. Over the past 2 weeks, something had been growing between them, something more than friendship. He caught himself watching her when he thought she was not looking, admiring the strength of her movements, the intelligence in her eyes. And sometimes he thought he saw her watching him too. But he said nothing. How could he? She was orc and he was human, and the world they lived in had no place for whatever this feeling was. Better to keep it locked inside, to treasure the friendship they had and not ruin it by asking for more. The third week brought autumn rain, great sheets of water that turned the yard to mud and kept them mostly indoors. Grisha helped Finn with tasks in the barn, mending harnesses and sorting through supplies. The close quarters made it harder to ignore the tension between them. "Finn," Grisha said one afternoon as they worked on opposite sides of the barn, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why have you never married? You are a good man with good land. Surely there are human women who would have you." The question caught him off guard. I suppose I never found the right person, and after my father died, I was too busy trying to keep the farm running. He paused. What about you? Is there someone back with your clan? No, Grisha's voice was firm. There was someone once, a young warrior who seemed interested. But he wanted a traditional orc wife, someone who would stay home and bear children and keep quiet. That was never going to be me. His loss. She looked up, meeting his eyes across the barn. You really think that? I know it. You are fierce and clever and strong. Anyone who cannot see that is a fool. The rain drummed on the roof in the silence that followed. Grisha set down the harness she had been working on and walked over to where Finn stood. She stopped close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. You see me, she said quietly. Really see me? Not an orc, not a monster, just me. Of course I do. I see you too, Finn. Her hand came up, hesitating, then gently touched his face. Her fingers were rough from work, but infinitely careful. I see a man who is kind without weakness, strong without cruelty. I see someone who makes me want to stay, even when staying is dangerous. Finn's heart was pounding so hard he thought she must be able to hear it. Grisha. Tell me I am wrong, she whispered. Tell me I am imagining this thing between us, and I will never speak of it again. He should tell her that. It would be the smart thing, the safe thing. But Finn had spent 2 years being safe and smart and lonely, and he could not make himself do it any more. You are not wrong, he said, and leaned in to kiss her. Her lips were warm and soft, and when she kissed him back, it felt like something in his chest was breaking open. They stood there in the barn with rain pouring down outside, holding each other like they were the only 2 people in the world. When they finally pulled apart, Grisha was smiling that rare, brilliant smile. I have wanted to do that for days, she admitted. So have I. This is going to complicate things. I know people will not understand. They will say terrible things. Let them. Finn took her hand, lacing their fingers together. I do not care what they say. I care about you. Grisha leaned her forehead against his, and he felt her breath warm on his skin. I care about you too, more than I thought possible. They stood like that for a long time, holding each other while the storm raged outside. And Finn thought that no matter what happened next, no matter what challenges they faced, this moment was worth it. She was worth it. The rest of the week passed in a golden haze. They worked side by side as always, but now there were stolen kisses in the barn, hands held when no one was watching, quiet conversations late into the night. Finn felt more alive than he had in years, and Grisha seemed to glow with happiness. But the outside world had a way of intruding on private joy. It was early morning on the first day of the 4th week when Finn heard horses approaching. He was in the barn with Grisha, and they both froze at the sound. Visitors this early rarely meant anything good. Hide, Finn said urgently. Up in the loft now. Grisha did not argue. She climbed the ladder quickly and disappeared into the shadows above. Finn took a deep breath, composed himself, and walked out to meet whoever was coming. There were 4 riders, all armed, wearing the colors of the local lord. The man in front was Captain Gerald Hayes, a hard-faced veteran Finn recognized from previous encounters. The captain had never liked him much, thought him strange for living alone and keeping to himself. Finn Oakley, Captain Hayes said, not bothering with a greeting. We are searching farms in this area. There have been reports of orc activity. I have not seen any orcs, Captain, Finn said, which was technically true. He had not seen any orcs other than Grisha. You will not mind if we search your property then. It was not really a question. Finn's mind raced, thinking of Grisha hidden in the loft. If they searched thoroughly, they would find her. Of course not, though I am not sure what you expect to find on a wheat farm. "We found orc tracks leading through this area 2 days ago," one of the other soldiers said. "Fresh ones." Those were Grisha's tracks, Finn realized. She must have walked to visit her clan and they had noticed. "Could have been animals," he suggested. "The woods are full of them." Captain Hayes dismounted, his men following suit. "We will see for ourselves. Bradley, check the house. Martin, the barn. Reynolds, come with me around the perimeter." Finn's heart sank as the soldier named Martin headed for the barn. He followed, trying to think of some way to stop this without making things worse. Martin was a young man, barely out of his teens, with the kind of zealous energy that made him dangerous. "Lot of hay up there," Martin said, looking at the loft. "Good place to hide something." "Just hay," Finn said, "and some old tools I have not used in years." Martin started climbing the ladder. Finn held his breath, praying that Grisha had found a good hiding spot. He heard the soldier moving around above, the creak of floorboards, the rustle of hay, then Martin's voice, sharp with excitement. "Captain, I found something." Finn's blood turned to ice. Captain Hayes strode into the barn and Finn followed on his heels. He climbed the ladder to see Martin standing over Grisha, his sword drawn. She was backed into a corner, her eyes blazing with defiance but making no move to fight. "An orc," Captain Hayes said with grim satisfaction. "On your farm, Finn. Care to explain?" "She is not a threat," Finn said quickly. "She has been helping me with the harvest, that is all." "That is all?" The captain's voice dripped with contempt. "You are harboring an orc, an enemy of humanity, and you say that is all. She is not an enemy. Her clan has peace agreements with the settlements. Those agreements mean nothing. Orcs are orcs and they cannot be trusted." Hayes turned to his men. "Chain her. We will take her back to the Lord's Keep for questioning." "No," Finn moved between them and Grisha. "She has done nothing wrong. She is an orc on human land. That is crime enough." Hayes nodded to his men. "Move him aside if you have to." 2 soldiers grabbed Finn's arms, pulling him back. He struggled, but they were trained fighters and he was just a farmer. He could only watch helplessly as Martin approached Grisha with chains. "Do not fight them," Finn called to her desperately. "Please, Grisha, do not fight. It will only make things worse." Grisha looked at him and he saw the conflict in her eyes. Every instinct was probably screaming at her to fight, to run, to do anything but submit. But after a long moment, she held out her wrists for the chains. "Smart choice, monster," Martin said, clamping the iron around her wrists. "She is not a monster," Finn snarled, still struggling against the men holding him. "And you have no right to do this." "We have every right," Captain Hayes said coldly. "And you, Finn Oakley, will be fortunate if you are not charged as a traitor for this. Harboring orcs, consorting with enemies, what were you thinking?" "I was thinking she is a person who deserves to be treated with dignity. She is an animal, and you are a fool." Hayes turned away. "Bring her." They dragged Grisha down the ladder, and Finn finally wrenched free from the soldiers holding him. He followed them out into the yard, where the other soldier was waiting by the horses. They were going to put Grisha on a horse, truss her like cargo. "Wait," Finn said, his mind racing for any argument that might help. "The local lord, Lord Edmund, he is a fair man. Let me speak to him. Let me explain the situation." "You will have your chance to explain," Hayes said, "when you are called to testify at her trial." "Trial for what? Existing?" "For trespassing on human lands, and whatever crimes we uncover when we question her properly." The cruel smile on Hayes's face made Finn's stomach turn. They loaded Grisha onto a horse, and Finn caught her eye one last time before they rode away. He tried to put everything he was feeling into that look, that he was sorry, that he would fix this, that she mattered to him more than anything. Then they were gone, and Finn was left standing in his yard feeling like his heart had been ripped out of his chest. He did not waste time on despair. He went inside, changed into his best clothes, and hitched up his wagon as fast as he could. The ride to Lord Edmund's keep took 3 hours, and Finn spent every minute of it planning what he would say. Lord Edmund was known to be stern but just. If Finn could make him understand, maybe there was hope. The keep was a squat stone building surrounded by a wooden palisade, more functional than grand. Finn had been here a handful of times over the years to pay his taxes and conduct official business. He knew the guards at the gate, and they let him through with curious looks. "I need to speak to Lord Edmund," Finn told them. "It is urgent." "He is busy with the orc prisoner," one guard said. "Found her on your land, I heard. That true?" "Yes, that is why I need to see him." They made him wait in a small anteroom for what felt like hours, but was probably only 30 minutes. Finally, a servant came to fetch him, leading him through stone corridors to Lord Edmund's study. The lord was a man in his 50s, his hair gray but his eyes sharp as ever. Captain Hayes stood beside him, and Grisha was nowhere to be seen. "Finn Oakley," Lord Edmund said, gesturing to a chair. "Please sit. We have much to discuss." Finn sat, his hands clenched on his knees. "My lord, I came to explain about the orc woman you found on my property." "Grisha of the Stone Bear clan," Lord Edmund said. "She has been quite forthcoming with information. She tells me she has been living on your farm for nearly a month, helping with the harvest." "That is true, my lord. And you did not think to report this to the authorities?" "I did not think there was anything to report. She is not a criminal. She was kidnapped by merchants and traded to me like property. I gave her freedom, and she chose to stay and help me. That is all." "That is not all," Captain Hayes interjected. "He has been consorting with the creature. Who knows what information he has given her about our defenses, our patrols?" "I have given her no information," Finn said hotly. "And she is not a creature, she is a person." "A person," Lord Edmund repeated thoughtfully. "An interesting position, Finn. Not one many of your neighbors would agree with." "I do not care what my neighbors think. It is the truth." Lord Edmund leaned back in his chair, studying Finn with those sharp eyes. "Captain Hayes believes you are a traitor, that you have been helping the orcs plan raids on our territory." "What do you say to that?" "I say it is nonsense, my lord. There have been no orcs on my land except Grisha, and she has done nothing but work and live peacefully. Her clan is not raiding. They are defending their own territory from encroachment. You seem very certain of that." "I am certain because Grisha told me, and I believe her. She is a healer, not a warrior. She was gathering herbs when she was captured." "So you trust the word of an orc over the reports of my own soldiers?" It was a trap of a question, and Finn knew it, but he could not back down now. "I trust the word of someone who has shown me nothing but honesty and hard work." "Yes, my lord." Lord Edmund was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to Captain Hayes. "Leave us. I would speak with Finn alone." The captain looked like he wanted to argue, but he bowed and left the room. Once the door closed behind him, Lord Edmund's expression shifted slightly. He looked tired. "You have put me in a difficult position, Finn." "That was not my intention, my lord. I believe you, but intention and reality are often different things." Lord Edmund stood and walked to the window, looking out over his courtyard. "There is growing pressure to deal harshly with orcs. The raids to the south have people frightened. They want blood, want to feel safe. If I release this orc woman, if I am seen as being soft, there will be consequences." "What will you do with her? The law is clear. Orcs found on human land without permission can be enslaved or executed. Captain Hayes favors the latter. He believes she is a spy." "She is not a spy." Finn stood, his hands clenched into fists. "My lord, please, she is innocent. Perhaps. But proving that is another matter." Lord Edmund turned back to him. "Tell me truthfully, Finn, what is this woman to you?" Finn took a breath. This was the moment where he could lie, could say she was just a worker, nothing more. It would be safer. But he thought of Grisha in chains, thought of her fierce eyes and gentle hands, and he knew he could not do it. "I love her," he said quietly. "I know how that sounds. I know it is forbidden and strange and the world will not accept it, but it is the truth. I love her and I will do anything to save her." Lord Edmund stared at him for a long moment. "Anything?" "Yes, my lord. Even leave. Take her away from this territory, go somewhere far from here where no one knows either of you." Hope flared in Finn's chest. "You would let us go?" "I would give you a choice." Lord Edmund walked back to his desk, pulling out a map. "There are lands to the west, beyond the frontier. Wild country, difficult to farm, but possible for someone strong and determined. If you were to take your orc and go there, settle outside my jurisdiction, then this would no longer be my problem. You are exiling us. I am offering you a solution. The alternative is that Grisha stands trial, and I can promise you that trial will not end well. Captain Hayes will make sure of that." Lord Edmund looked at him seriously. "This is the best I can do, Finn. Take it or leave it." Finn's mind raced. Leave his farm, the land his father and grandfather had worked, everything he knew. Go west into unknown territory with only Grisha and whatever they could carry. It was madness. It was also the only chance they had. "I will take it," Finn said. "But I need your word that Grisha will be released to me unharmed." "You have it, but you must leave within 3 days. And Finn, if you are ever seen in this territory again, neither of you will receive mercy a second time. Do you understand?" "I understand, my lord. Thank you." Lord Edmund nodded wearily. "I will have her brought to you. There is a way out through the back of the keep. I suggest you use it and leave quickly, before Captain Hayes learns what I have decided. He will not be pleased." They brought Grisha to him in a small courtyard behind the keep. She still wore the chains, and there were new bruises on her face that made Finn's vision go red with anger. But she was alive, and when she saw him, relief flooded her features. "Finn," she said as a guard removed her chains. "What did you do?" "What I had to." He took her hands, not caring who saw. "We have to leave. The Lord is giving us 3 days to get out of his territory. If we stay, they will kill you. Leave. But your farm, your home. None of that matters without you." Finn squeezed her hands. "We will go west, start over, together, if you want to, that is." Grisha looked at him with tears in her eyes. "You would give up everything for me, in a heartbeat." She pulled him into a fierce embrace, and Finn held her like she was the most precious thing in the world. Behind them, a guard cleared his throat. "You should go," the guard said quietly. "The captain will be back soon, and he will not let this stand if he can help it." They went. Finn's wagon was waiting where he had left it, and they climbed aboard. He drove them back to his farm as fast as the horses would go, already making plans in his head. They would need supplies, tools, seeds for planting, everything they could carry. "I need to tell my clan," Grisha said as they rode. "They have to know I am leaving. Can you reach them quickly? I can be there and back by morning if I run. Then go. I will pack everything we need." When they reached the farm, Grisha kissed him hard and desperate, then ran off toward the forest. Finn watched her go, then turned to the monumental task ahead of him. 3 days to pack a life, to decide what was essential and what had to be left behind. He worked through the night, sorting and packing. Clothes, tools, seeds, preserved food, blankets, rope, knives, a bow and arrows for hunting. He loaded the wagon carefully, trying to balance between taking enough and not overloading the horses. His father's old sword, which Finn had never thought to use, went into the wagon too. The west was wild country, and they would need to defend themselves. Grisha returned just before dawn, accompanied by another orc. This one was older, a woman with gray streaks in her dark hair and Grisha's eyes. Finn knew immediately who she was. "You must be Grisha's mother," he said. "I am Kaja," the woman said, her voice deep and measuring. "My daughter tells me you are taking her away to the western lands." "Yes, I am sorry to take her from you, but it is the only way to keep her safe." Kaja studied him for a long moment. "Grisha says you love her, is this true?" "Yes. And you, daughter," Kaja turned to Grisha. "You love this human." "I do, mother," Grisha said quietly. "I know it is not what you wanted for me. What I want is for you to be happy and safe." Kaja sighed. "This human world will never accept you together, but perhaps in the wild lands you can make a new life." She reached into the bag she carried and pulled out a bundle wrapped in leather. "These are healing herbs, the ones you were gathering when you were taken. Take them. You will need them." "Mother," Grisha's voice broke, "go with my blessing, daughter, both of you." Kaja looked at Finn. "Protect her, human. If you fail, know that I will find you, and no power in this world will save you from my vengeance." "I will protect her with my life," Finn promised. Kaja embraced Grisha one last time, fierce and tight. Then she melted back into the forest, and Finn and Grisha were alone. They spent the next 2 days finishing preparations. Finn sold some of his tools to a traveling merchant for coin, which they would need. He left a letter for his neighbors explaining that he was moving west, asking them to look after his land if they could. He did not tell them about Grisha. Let them make up their own stories. On the morning of the 3rd day, they set out. The wagon was heavy with supplies, the horses strong and well fed. Finn drove while Grisha sat beside him, wrapped in a cloak to hide her appearance from anyone they might pass on the road. The journey west took 2 weeks. They followed old traders' routes at first, then increasingly rough paths as they left settled lands behind. Finn saw Grisha relax more with each mile, the tension leaving her shoulders as the threat of pursuit faded. They talked as they traveled, making plans for their new life. Grisha knew how to read the land, where to find water and good soil. Finn knew how to build and farm. Together, they thought, they might actually have a chance. The frontier lands were beautiful in a wild way. Rolling hills covered in tall grass, forests of oak and pine, rivers running clear and cold. They saw herds of deer, flights of geese heading south for winter, once even a bear in the distance. But no people. This land was empty, unclaimed, waiting for someone brave or foolish enough to make it home. They found the right spot in a valley sheltered by hills, with a stream running through it and good soil visible in the clearings. There was even the remains of an old cabin, half collapsed, but with some walls still standing. "This could work," Finn said, looking around. "We would have to rebuild the cabin, clear more land for planting. It will be hard work." "Good thing we are both used to hard work," Grisha said with a smile. They made camp that first night beside the stream, too tired to do more than set up a basic shelter. Finn built a fire while Grisha caught fish from the stream with her bare hands, a trick that never failed to amaze him. They cooked the fish and ate in comfortable silence, watching the stars come out above them. "Are you sorry," Grisha asked quietly, "that you gave up your farm for me?" Finn pulled her close, feeling the warmth of her against his side. "Not for a second. That farm was a house, but this, here with you, this feels like home." Grisha turned her face up to his, and he kissed her under the stars. It tasted like possibility, like the beginning of something new and precious. They spent the next months building their new life. The cabin took shape day by day, walls repaired and a new roof added. Finn showed Grisha how to notch logs and fit them together. Grisha showed Finn which plants could be woven into rope and which made good medicine. They worked from dawn to dusk, falling into their makeshift bed exhausted each night. Winter came early in the frontier lands, fierce and cold. but they were ready. The cabin was tight and warm, their stores of food adequate. They spent the long dark evenings by the fire, Finn teaching Grisha more complex reading while she taught him her language. Sometimes they would just sit in silence, content in each other's presence. "I want to marry you," Finn said one night as snow fell outside. Grisha looked up from the shirt she was mending. "Marry? I know it is not legal, not recognized by any human authority, but I do not care about that. I want you to be my wife in every way that matters." "Orcs do not marry like humans do," Grisha said slowly, "but we have bonding ceremonies. A couple declares themselves before witnesses, makes promises to each other. We do not have witnesses. We have the land, the sky, the spirits of this place. That is enough." Grisha set down her mending and took his hands. "I, Grisha of the Stone Bear clan, choose you, Finn Oakley, as my bondmate. I promise to stand with you in all things, to share your burdens and your joys, to honor you as an equal and love you as my heart." Finn's throat was tight with emotion. "I, Finn Oakley, choose you, Grisha, as my wife. I promise to protect you, to cherish you, to build a life with you that is worth the sacrifices we have made. I promise to love you until my last breath." They sealed the promises with a kiss, and Finn felt something settle in his chest. She was his wife now in all the ways that mattered. The world might not recognize it, but the world had never understood them anyway. Spring came, and with it the real work began. They cleared land for planting, breaking the soil and removing rocks. Finn built a plow and used the horses to turn the earth. Grisha planted the seeds they had brought, wheat and vegetables and herbs. She also gathered wild seeds, transplanting useful plants closer to the cabin. One day in late spring, Grisha came running back from the forest with excitement in her eyes. "There are apple trees on the far side of the valley, a whole grove of them. They must have been planted by whoever built that cabin originally." They went to see the trees together and found a small orchard gone wild but still bearing fruit. "We can cultivate these," Finn said, already planning in his head. "Prune them properly, and we will have apples for eating and cider." "We could also trade them," Grisha suggested. "If there are other settlers out here, apples would be valuable." It was a good point. They were not completely alone in the frontier. They had seen smoke from other homesteads in the distance, though they had not made contact yet. Finn was nervous about meeting other people, worried about how they would react to Grisha. But they could not hide forever. The decision was made for them when a rider appeared at their cabin one afternoon. He was a rough-looking man in his 40s, heavily armed and watchful. Finn stepped out to meet him while Grisha stayed in the cabin, watching through a window. "Hello," Finn called out. "Can I help you?" The rider looked him over. "Name is Marcus Ward. I have got a homestead about 5 miles north of here. Wanted to see who my new neighbors were." "Finn Oakley." "This is my land now. You are alone out here." It was the question Finn had been dreading. He could lie, but if Marcus was going to be a neighbor, the truth would come out eventually. Better to get it over with now. "No," Finn said carefully. "My wife is inside." "Wife?" Marcus looked surprised. "Did not figure anyone would bring a woman out to this rough country. She is tougher than you might think." As if on cue, Grisha stepped out of the cabin. She had her chin up, her shoulders back, meeting Marcus's stare without flinching. The man's eyes widened as he took in her green skin and tusks. "That is an orc," Marcus said flatly. "That is my wife," Finn replied, his hand moving to the knife at his belt. "Is that going to be a problem?" Marcus stared at them both for a long moment. Then, incredibly, he laughed. "An orc wife? Well, that is something you do not see every day." He shook his head. "No, friend, it is not a problem for me. I left civilization because I got tired of people telling me how to live. I am not about to do the same to you. You are both welcome in these parts as far as I am concerned." Finn felt the tension drain from his shoulders. "Thank you. Although," Marcus added, "you might want to be careful if you head further west. There is a settlement about 30 miles that way, and they are not as open-minded as I am. They have had troubles with orc raiders and are pretty hostile to any green skins they see." "We will keep that in mind," Grisha said. Her voice was steady, but Finn saw the disappointment in her eyes. Even here in the wild lands, they could not escape prejudice completely. Marcus stayed for a while, sharing news of the other homesteaders in the area and offering advice about the land. He seemed genuinely friendly, and by the time he left, Finn felt they had made a cautious ally. "He seemed nice," Grisha said as they watched him ride away. "He did. Maybe there are more people like him out here. Maybe, but we should still be careful." Summer brought their first real harvest. The wheat grew tall and golden, the vegetables flourished, and Grisha's herb garden became a lush collection of medicinal plants. They worked together to bring it all in, and Finn felt a deep satisfaction watching their stores fill up. This was food they had grown together, on land that was truly theirs. They had more visitors as summer progressed. Marcus brought his own wife, a quiet woman named Sarah who was delighted to have another woman to talk to, orc or not. Another homesteader, an older man named Thomas, came to trade tools. Each time, Finn braced himself for hostility, but it never came. Out here on the frontier, people seemed more concerned with survival than the color of someone's skin, but the peaceful days could not last forever. It was late summer when the raiders came. Finn was working in the fields when he heard Grisha scream from the cabin. He ran, his heart in his throat, and saw 3 men on horses in the yard. They were rough-looking, weapons drawn, and they had Grisha cornered against the cabin wall. "Thought we would find some good loot out here," one of them was saying. "Did not expect to find an orc. She will fetch a good price if we take her back east." "Get away from her," Finn shouted, pulling the knife from his belt. The raiders turned and one of them laughed. "Look, the farmer thinks he is going to fight us. Boy, put that knife down before you get hurt." Finn did not put the knife down. He charged at the nearest raider, rage overriding common sense. The man tried to swing his sword, but Finn was inside his guard, driving the knife into the raider's leg. The man screamed and fell from his horse. The other 2 raiders reacted immediately. One rode at Finn while the other went for Grisha. But Grisha was not the helpless victim they thought. She grabbed a piece of firewood and swung it hard, catching the raider in the knee as he dismounted. He went down hard, and Grisha was on him, wrestling his sword away. Finn was not so lucky. The raider he was fighting was skilled, and Finn was just a farmer with a knife. The raider's sword slashed across Finn's shoulder, sending blood flying and pain searing through his arm. He stumbled back, barely blocking the next strike. Then Grisha was there, the stolen sword in her hands. She moved with a warrior's grace, parrying the raider's attacks and driving him back. The raider Finn had stabbed was trying to remount his horse, while the one Grisha had struck was groaning on the ground. "Go!" the mounted raider shouted to his companion. "We need to get out of here." They fled, 2 of them limping badly, leaving their injured companion behind. Grisha stood over the fallen raider with the sword pointed at his throat. "Please," the man begged, "do not kill me." "Give me one good reason why not," Grisha said coldly. "Grisha," Finn said, his voice strained. The pain in his shoulder was getting worse, and he could feel blood running down his arm. "Let him go. He tried to kidnap me, to sell me. I know, but if you kill him it makes us murderers, and we are not that." Finn swayed on his feet, and Grisha quickly moved to support him, the sword still in one hand. "Get on your horse and go," Grisha told the raider. "If I ever see you again, I will not be so merciful." The raider scrambled away, mounting his horse and galloping after his companions. As soon as he was gone, Grisha dropped the sword and focused on Finn. "How bad is it?" she asked, her hands already working to remove his shirt and examine the wound. "I have had worse," Finn lied. In truth, the pain was making him dizzy, and he could feel his strength draining away with the blood. Grisha got him inside and laid him on their bed. She worked quickly, her healer's training taking over. She washed the wound with clean water and applied herbs to stop the bleeding, then stitched it closed with careful precision. Through it all, Finn gritted his teeth and tried not to cry out. "You are an idiot," Grisha said as she worked, but her voice was shaking. "Charging 3 armed men with just a knife. They were threatening you, so I can take care of myself, I know, but I could not just stand by and watch." Grisha finished the stitching and bandaged his shoulder. Then she sat down beside him on the bed, and Finn saw tears running down her green cheeks. "I thought I was going to lose you," she whispered. "When I saw that sword hit you, I thought my heart would stop." Finn reached up with his good arm and pulled her down to him. "I am all right." "We are both all right. This time, but what about next time? Those men were human, Finn. They were your people and they saw me as property to be sold." "They are not my people. You are my people. You are my family." Grisha buried her face in his neck and he felt her tears hot on his skin. He held her as tightly as his wounded shoulder would allow, and they lay there together as the afternoon faded to evening. Finn's wound took weeks to fully heal, and even then it left an angry scar across his shoulder. During his recovery, they had more visitors, but thankfully peaceful ones. Marcus came by when he heard about the raid, bringing his wife and some extra supplies. "There has been trouble with bandits," Marcus explained. "They prey on isolated homesteads. We have been talking about forming a kind of informal watch, neighbors looking out for each other." "Would you be interested?" "Yes," Finn said immediately. "What would it involve?" "Mostly just keeping an eye out, alerting others if we see trouble, maybe gathering together if there is a real threat." Marcus glanced at Grisha. "Everyone would have to agree to it, including accepting all our neighbors as equals." "And would they accept me?" Grisha asked quietly. "The folks I have talked to so far do not have a problem with you," Marcus said. "Like I said before, we are all out here because we wanted to live free. That means respecting other folks' freedom too." So they joined the informal network of frontier homesteaders. It was not a government or even really an organization, just neighbors agreeing to help each other. But it made Finn feel less isolated, knowing there were people they could call on if needed. Autumn came again, marking a full year since they had left Finn's old farm. They celebrated quietly, reflecting on everything they had survived and built. The cabin was solid now, with a proper roof and even glass in the windows, traded from a passing merchant. Their fields were productive, their stores full. They had friends, or at least friendly neighbors. "Are you happy?" Finn asked Grisha one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. "Yes," she said without hesitation. "I miss my mother and my clan sometimes, but this life we have built, it is good, better than I ever thought possible." "I feel the same way." Finn took her hand. "Do you ever regret walking back to that farm after I traded for you with that wagon wheel?" Grisha smiled, that beautiful smile that still made his heart skip. "Not once. That was the best decision I ever made." Winter came and went. Spring brought new planting and with it news. A proper town was being established about 50 miles to the south, with a marshal and a charter and everything. Some of the homesteaders were excited about the prospect of closer trade and protection. Others, Finn and Grisha among them, were more cautious. "Towns mean laws," Grisha said. "And laws about who can own land, who can marry, who counts as a person." "We do not have to go there," Finn pointed out. We can stay here, keep to ourselves. But the world had a way of not letting people keep to themselves. The marshal came to visit all the homesteaders that spring, introducing himself and explaining the new town's charter. He was a lean man with cold eyes, and Finn did not like him from the start. His dislike was confirmed when the marshal saw Grisha. "You are harboring an orc," the marshal said flatly. "She is my wife, and this is our land," Finn replied, keeping his voice level. "There are laws about orcs on human territory." "We are not on human territory. We are on frontier land unclaimed by any nation or lord." The marshal's eyes narrowed. "The town charter claims all land within 100 miles. That includes your homestead. That is ridiculous. You cannot just declare you own land. People have been working for years. The charter has been approved by the territorial governor. It is legal and binding." The marshal looked at Grisha with disgust. "The orc needs to leave or be registered as property. Those are your options. She is not property and she is not leaving. Then you are in violation of the law and I can have you both arrested." Finn felt rage building in his chest, but before he could say something that would make things worse, Marcus appeared. He must have been visiting and heard the confrontation. "Marshal," Marcus said with forced cheer, "I think there might be some confusion here. See, those of us who homesteaded this land before your town was established, we have prior claims, squatters' rights and all that. Squatters' rights do not apply when there is a territorial charter. Yes, I know." Marcus pulled a folded paper from his pocket. "But we filed our own claims with the territorial governor 6 months ago. Got them approved too. So legally, we are all landowners with deeded property. That means the town charter cannot supersede our claims." The marshal looked furious, but he took the paper and read it over. Finn watched, hardly daring to breathe. If this was true, if they really had legal protection, it could change everything. "This appears to be in order," the marshal finally said through gritted teeth. "But the law about orcs still applies." "Actually, it does not." Marcus was clearly enjoying this. "The deeds grant us sovereignty over our individual properties. What we do on our own land is our business, so long as we are not breaking territorial law, and there is no territorial law against orcs living peacefully on private property." "There should be." "Maybe, but there is not," Marcus smiled. "So I think we are done here, Marshal. Unless you have some other business." The marshal left, but Finn knew they had not seen the last of him. People like that did not like being thwarted, and they had long memories. "How did you know to file those claims?" Finn asked Marcus once the marshal was gone. "I did not. But I am good at bluffing, and I gambled that he would not know territorial law well enough to call me on it." Marcus grinned. "We should probably actually file those claims, though, just to be safe." So they did, all the homesteaders working together to properly document their land ownership. It took months and cost money they could barely spare, but in the end, they had legal deeds. Grisha's name was on the deed right next to Finn's, recognizing her as a co-owner. It was not quite the same as recognizing their marriage, but it was something. 2 years after they had fled to the frontier, Finn and Grisha's homestead was thriving. They had expanded their fields, improved their cabin, and even built a small barn for the horses and the cow they had traded for. Grisha's herb garden was famous among the other homesteaders, and people came from miles around when they were sick or injured, knowing she could help them. It was a good life. Hard, sometimes dangerous, but good. They worked side by side every day, partners in everything. They had arguments sometimes, usually about stupid things like how to organize the tool shed or whether they needed to plant more wheat. But they always made up, usually with laughter and kisses. Summer brought a surprise visitor. Grisha's brother, Kresh, appeared one afternoon leading a group of young orcs. Grisha ran to embrace him, tears of joy streaming down her face. "Mother sent me to check on you," Kresh explained. He was a massive orc, easily a head taller than Grisha, with the build of a warrior. But his eyes were kind as he looked at Finn. "You are the human who took my sister away." "I am," Finn said, offering his hand. "Finn Oakley." Kresh studied the offered hand for a moment, then gripped it firmly. "My mother says you are a good man. My sister's letters say the same. I wanted to see for myself. You are welcome to stay as long as you like." They stayed for 3 days, Kresh and his companions. They helped with work around the homestead, and in the evenings they shared stories and food. Finn learned more about orc culture in those 3 days than he had in 2 years with Grisha. He also learned that Grisha's clan had officially recognized their bonding, which meant something to her that Finn could see even if he did not fully understand. "They accept us," Grisha said wonderingly after her brother left. "My clan, they accept you as my bondmate. Does that surprise you?" "A little. My mother worked hard to convince the elders, I think, but they agreed that any person who would give up everything for my sister deserves respect." She smiled. "You are officially Finn Oakley, bondmate of Grisha, friend to the Stone Bear clan. That is quite a title. You have earned it." The years continued to pass. 3 years, 4, 5. The frontier slowly became more settled. The town to the south grew, and while Finn and Grisha rarely went there, they traded with merchants who passed through. More homesteaders arrived, claiming land and building lives. Some were accepting of Grisha, others less so, but they had enough friends now that the hostility did not matter much. Grisha's mother visited sometimes, bringing supplies and news from the clan. Marcus and Sarah became close friends, their children playing with the orc children when Grisha's relatives visited. The informal network of homesteaders became more organized, with regular gatherings and shared projects. Life was not perfect. There were still people who hated them for what they were, humans and orcs who thought their relationship was an abomination. The marshal tried several times to find legal ways to separate them, always failing but always trying. There were more raids, more bandits, and once a truly terrible winter that killed several of their animals and nearly killed them too. But they survived it all together. 10 years after Grisha had walked back to Finn's farm, they sat on their porch watching the sunset, just as they had so many times before. Their homestead was well established now, almost prosperous. They had hired help during harvest time, both human and orc workers who did not care about the color of anyone's skin. They had respect in the community, a reputation for fairness and hard work. "You ever think about that wagon wheel?" Finn asked. Grisha laughed. "Sometimes. Those merchants thought they were cheating you, trading a slave for a simple piece of wood. Best trade I ever made. Even though it cost you everything you had before, especially because of that." Finn took her hand, his fingers lacing with hers in a gesture that had become second nature over the years. "Everything I had before was just stuff, land and a house and tools. What I have now is a life worth living. We did build something good here, did we not? We did. And we are not done yet." Grisha leaned her head on his shoulder, and they watched the sun sink below the horizon in comfortable silence. Tomorrow would bring more work, more challenges, maybe more trouble, but they would face it together, as they had faced everything else. 2 days after those merchants had traded the orc girl for a wagon wheel, she had walked back to his farm alone. It was the bravest thing Finn had ever seen, and it had changed both their lives forever. She had chosen him when she had every reason to walk away, and he had chosen her right back. And now, a decade later, sitting on the porch of their home with her hand in his, Finn knew with absolute certainty that he would make that same choice again. Every time, without hesitation, for the rest of his life. The stars came out one by one above them, bright and clear in the frontier sky. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled. The wind rustled through their wheat fields, carrying the scent of growing things and wild places. And Finn thought that this, right here, was what happiness felt like, not the absence of struggle or pain. Not a life free from prejudice or hardship, but a life chosen freely, lived authentically, with someone who saw you completely and loved you anyway. Grisha stirred beside him, pressing a kiss to his cheek. "Come inside," she said softly. "It is getting cold." They went inside together, closing the door on the night. Tomorrow the work would start again, the endless cycle of seasons and planting and harvest. There would be challenges ahead, there always were. But they would face them side by side. Two people who had found each other against impossible odds and built something beautiful from the ruins of what they had left behind. The story of the human farmer and the orc healer who loved him was told sometimes in the frontier settlements, usually as a curiosity or a cautionary tale. But Finn did not care what stories people told. He knew the truth, and the truth was simple. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk back to someone who showed you kindness. Sometimes love is worth more than land or gold or acceptance. And sometimes, just sometimes, the world surprises you by letting you keep what you have fought so hard to protect. Their home stood warm and solid against the frontier night, a beacon of what was possible when people chose love over fear, hope over hatred. And inside, Finn and Grisha built their life together one day at a time, one choice at a time, one moment of grace and tenderness at a time. It was enough. More than enough. It was everything.